A true legend in Arizona radio, Tim Hattrick joins me this week. Welcome to the Mike Broomhead Show.
Well, I got a message, I got a song. Can I get a witness? Tell me what's going on. I show the people I've been away.
He's in the Radio Hall of Fame. He's got a story that's unbelievable. His comeback in the radio business. We'll talk to Tim Hattrick in a few minutes. We start every show off with something we call The Sweep. Now, The Sweep is sponsored by my good friends at Zero Res Carpet and Tile Cleaning. On the national front, one of the biggest stories this week is the GOP health care bill. They were trying to get a vote this week on the bill in the Senate. They couldn't get the 50 votes they needed. And if it's a 50-50 tie, the reason why they only need 50 is because in the United States Senate, most people know, the vice president breaks the tie. Well, obviously, the vice president's on board with the health care bill, so all they need are 50 votes, but they can't get there. So Mitch McConnell had a press conference, and they went and saw the president to talk about what the dissenting Republican senators, because none of the Democrats are on board, what the dissenting Republicans wanted, and this is what he had to say about the bill.
We just finished a meeting with a full Republican conference with the president and the vice president discussing, obviously, health care. As you already know, we're continuing to work on reaching an agreement that will involve continuing the discussion to the end of the week, and we'll not be turning to the bill on the floor of the Senate until a couple of weeks after.
So they're not going to have a vote for a few weeks. And again, what the House mistake was, they set that vote at Friday. Then they pulled it, and it looked like they couldn't get anything done. In the end, they revamped the bill in the House to something that they could bring more members on, and they got the majority they needed. Mitch McConnell's doing the right thing by saying, we went to the president, we let him hear from what these other senators had to say. Now, guys like Rand Paul, who I agree with him, if there's 10 of the 12 Obamacare mandates still in place, that's not repealing. There are other things that Mike Lee wanted, and some other senators that are dissenting on this. Hopefully they can come to a conclusion that then they can go back to the House with and get those two together, and then they can get something to the president's desk. That's the goal. But the fact of the matter is this. If anybody says to you, and this is my opinion, if someone says to you, save our health care, like they're going to Jeff Flake and John McCain's offices saying, the reply should always be, what health care? Especially here in Arizona, 140% increases in premiums. In every single county in the state of Arizona, if people are on the healthcare exchanges, a family of four pays on average more money for their health care insurance every month than they do for their mortgage. So a family of four is going to come out of pocket in the neighborhood of $30,000 with the deductibles and with their premiums before the insurance kicks in. That is not health insurance. This has to get fixed because it's bankrupting families. Next, we've got the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court heard the case on the travel ban. Now, we know that on the travel ban now mostly stays intact. The only people from those 6 terrorist nations that can come here, they still have to get a visa, but the only ones that will be allowed in is if they have a close family tie, an immediate family tie. Even grandchildren can't come. Sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, that's it. And you've got to get a visa. Other than that, 90-day ban on coming into the country. What they're going to hear in the next session is going to be the case of the Denver baker. Jack Phillips is the owner of Masterpiece Bakery and refused to make a wedding cake for religious reasons for a gay couple. I feel, well, there's 2 things on this. Number one, the guy's got a right to not make the cake. And that's my opinion. And it doesn't damage the couple because they can find hundreds of other places that will. This is about politics. And any couple, I don't care if you're straight or gay, that politicizes your wedding, you're crazy. I've paid for weddings. Listen, they're not cheap. And if someone didn't want to do business with me, they gave me a little bit of an attitude, I wouldn't give them my money. But this is where we're at. We'll see how the Supreme Court decides on that. Want you to see a small piece of video. Bernie Sanders' wife being investigated for a now defunct Burlington College. Check this out.
Do you know she's under FBI investigation?
Excuse me. My wife is about the most honest person I know. When she came to that college, it was failing financially and academically. When she left it, it was in better shape than it ever been. 5 years later, just at the moment, coincidentally, no doubt, when I'm a candidate for President of the United States, Donald Trump's campaign manager, a vice chairman of the Republican Party in Vermont, launched this investigation. So all that I will tell you now, Aaron, it is a sad state of affairs in America, not only when we have, politicians being destroyed, when there are attacks against elected officials, when you go after your wife, people's wives, That is pretty pathetic. And that's where we are right now. That's about all that I'm going to say.
I do just want to understand, though, at this time, do you have any knowledge as to whether she's under FBI investigation?
That's all that I want to say.
How's that for your irony right there? Bernie Sanders upset. You've seen what they've done to the Trump family about his relationship with his daughter, what they've said about his wife. Are you kidding me? Now they're going to get upset about this? What a shame. It is absolutely a shame. You're going to meet Tim Hattrick here in a few minutes. I can't wait for you to hear his story. Before we get to Tim Hattrick, though, let me talk to you about the good people at Zero Res. Zero Res Carpet and Tile Cleaning. They do a phenomenal job on tile and carpet, and they've got a great special going on right now. Over 25,000 positive reviews for this company online. Their technicians are great. They do an excellent job. They're going to leave your home looking good, and their product, Empowered Water, is second to none. The only company in the industry that makes the claim they leave no residue in your carpet. Better for the carpet, better for anybody who walks on it. Do yourself a favor. When your carpets need to be cleaned, check out the special and contact the good people at Zero Res. I'll be back in a moment. If you spent time in Arizona, you know the name Tim Hattrick. He is a radio legend, I mean, a legit Hall of Famer, and I'm glad you're here.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be here.
So what's like with that HOF at the end of your name? That's kind of cool.
One of the most surprising things about the long and somewhat illustrious Tim and Willie run that we had in Phoenix, Arizona, and other places was that they did invite us to the Hall of Fame, the Broadcast Hall of Fame, and I'd have never dreamt, didn't have dreams that big when I was a kid.
First of all, how did you start in radio? I mean, everybody has a different story in this business, and mine is horrible. But
yours is amazing.
Well,
yours
mine is
legit.
weird.
Yeah, but I'm still in awe of how you came to be and what a story that is. I grew up here in the Valley. I was a class clown, baby of 4 kids. I was always, you know, a wiseacre, that kind of thing, getting in trouble in school. And somehow I managed to turn what I used to get sent to the principal's office for into a vocation and helped me raise my family, and it's been a good life.
Where did you go to high school?
Went to Scottsdale High.
Oh, did you?
It's so long ago now that the high school closed down to build a mall, and the mall's gone out of business. So it's been
a while ago.
A few centuries now. But no, I grew up right in the heart of Scottsdale.
First job in radio was what?
Well, technically, I worked for this radio reading service that was for visually impaired people, and it was a radio station that essentially read at the time, the morning and the afternoon paper, and then read magazine articles, and it was just a little radio station that if you were visually impaired, you could get one of these receivers in your house. And I ran the board. I wasn't really even on the air, but my brothers all teased me that I was on a radio station for the deaf. That wasn't true. I went to NAU. I went to school up in Flagstaff, and they had local radio stations in town and the school station, so that's where I kind of got wet behind the ears. No, I don't know what the saying is.
What was your first big break in the business? And when you felt like this is a big break for me?
Yeah, so I took an internship one summer from NAU. I came down to the Valley to work at KDKB, which was a big radio station. I was just going to be, you know, a non-paid intern, and at the time their morning show split up, John and Bill. And John stayed, and they asked me to be a part of the morning show. I mean, here I was in my hometown. I thought I was going to begin my radio career by, you know, hitching a U-Haul to my car and finding some little map dot somewhere else in the world. But here I was on like the #1. That was the legit rock station at the time, and I was on the morning show. And I was from there. It was just a crazy, wild, winding road.
What people don't know is at one time you were half of the morning zoo at Y95 with a name that people may recognize in the radio business.
Well, I know you do.
Yeah.
Yes, for a little over a year, it was the Glenn and Tim show, Glenn of Glenn Beck. He and I met when we were in our early 20s. They put us together on a radio station. It was like a top 40 station. And our thing was, we had the big station in town, which is the big popular one, KZZP. We were nothing. We had no ratings. So we tried every stunt in the book and all these gimmicks. And we had a crazy show together. He was a super talented guy, as you know. But
he tells stories to me about that time, probably differently than you tell them.
Right.
And he has always said to me, I think one of the things he said to me was, whatever Tim has said about me at that time is true, and he's too nice about it.
Well, I mean, it was a feisty relationship. We got, you know, put together unbeknownst to each of the others that we were being paired together. They told me I was going to have this show, and I had this guy on it. They told him the same thing, so we kind of both came into it at the same time thinking, who's this knucklehead? But man, was he talented, and we came up with some crazy stuff in the year we were on.
We've got about 2 minutes in this segment. Can you tell the Michael Jackson story? Or is that not for consumption attention on the television.
No, it
now.
really is. But I mean, this is the kind of thing we did. We would just come up with these stunts to get people involved and get people talking, and it worked. We went up in the rating. So at the time, Michael Jackson had just been, it was when he was doing Pepsi commercials.
Yep.
He was the biggest star. And there was the Pepsi blimp flying around town. We made it sound like Michael Jackson was in town filming a Pepsi commercial at, of all places, the Sun Dome in Sun City.
Of course, that's where he'd go.
And so all day long, we stayed on the radio all day long, like the morning show until 4 in the afternoon. And we had this scheme that he was going to be coming back to his hotel, which was the Embassy Suites by the Biltmore. Like, that's, of course, where Michael Jackson would stay,
Yeah.
right? And
Not the Biltmore Hotel.
right,
The Embassy Suite.
Embassy Suites
Okay.
with the garden inside. And a huge crowd of listeners showed up to see him, and we didn't know what to do. So on the fly, we rented a limousine, and we had this girl, this African-American girl, very tall and slender, who worked at the station as an engineer. We had her ride in the limousine, and then we bought one silver glove. And the bit was the limousine pulled up, the crowd went crazy, and all of a sudden it hesitated. The roof of the limousine opened up, and the one silver glove came out, and it drove away. Everybody thought Michael Jackson was in the back of that limo. Glenn and I looked at each other like, if these people find out, they are going to hang us from a tree. So it was one of the kind of risk-reward moments that kind of put us on the map. And then next thing you know, Glenn got another offer, and that was the end of the Glenn and Tim show.
And you've gone on, and I think what we should talk about next is you with Willie, Tim
Yep.
and Willie. And then the time period where you were off the air is where I think I've come to admire you the most as I hear more of those stories.
Yeah.
So I would like to, if you don't mind, I want to talk about those things. And now where you are now in our building with Tim, Ben, and Brooke, that show is hitting it out of the park. It's got to feel great to be back, back in the driver's seat again.
I'll tell you what, I'm a lucky guy, and happy to share that story. You want to tell here?
Yeah, we're going to wait a minute. We're going to
Okay. All
take a
right.
quick break. When we get back, you're going to find out what's going on with Tim, and there was a period of time where he wasn't on the air, so stick around. All right, so what do you do when you've had it all, and then you lose it all, and then get a chance to get it all back again? That story's true, and I'm with Tim Hattrick. And
Yep.
Tim and Willie, when I moved here in 1995, I've told you this story, you've heard me tell it 100 times to people. When I moved here in 1995, I'm a big country music fan. It was only Tim and Willie. That's who it was. And my girls, especially my youngest, Raven, we are such big fans of Tim and Willie. We had the CDs from the Christmas show at night,
Yep.
and we still laugh and tell jokes from the CDs box of puppies, how long ago that was.
It was a lot of fun.
So I've been a huge fan of yours forever, but that time period where it didn't happen, you tried your own thing,
Yep.
and then you were off the air. What was that day like for you when you realized not only are you off the air, but you've kind of lost it all?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I'll just say that for all the Tim and Willie fans, 25 amazing years together, an unbelievably fun and successful time. Bought nice houses, vacations, put the kids through school. All of that was great. But there was a point where we launched our own Tim and Willie radio network, and I invested all of my life savings, like my 401k, my retirement money in it.
Always a wise choice.
Well, no, I don't listen to any of the ads that you promote on your radio show, obviously. But I believed in it. We kind of, got this chip on our shoulder a little bit, like, man, radio's changing, the bosses, the corporations, we can run this a lot better. And if we could, we would just be happy, everything would be perfect. Well, it was a lot harder than it seemed. And so I always tell people the worst boss I ever worked for was me. It's hard to be the boss. And we actually got on a roll. We were, bringing in money, but we decided to shut the show down in 2014 because it was just too much work and we weren't having fun. Willie went to live in Prescott where he's golfing every day and he's doing great. But I
Went to work.
I said, well, okay, I'll just go get another radio job. No big deal. It was a big deal. I couldn't get a radio job, and I couldn't get a job in the associated fields of advertising, PR, marketing. And it was a real rude awakening for me to be, like 50 years old and have to go try to find a job on the websites and the online submissions. It was a world I had no idea about.
Some of the things you did.
Well, when I couldn't find a job doing what I thought, my skill set was, my bills didn't care about my skill set or my job happiness. They said, we want to be paid. So I did what people do. I went out and I drove for Uber. I worked at Amazon in Southwest Phoenix, and I also was a UPS delivery guy. And these are jobs I love driving, first of all. I love interacting with people, but each of those things was a fascinating, kind of an eye-opening revelation to me. And one morning, I was trying to make my way to the job at Amazon. It's at like 51st Avenue and Van Buren, and I'm stuck in traffic on I-17, and it's not moving, and I'm listening to the radio, and I'm panicked because it's like I got to get to work, and it like the clouds opened up, and I had this moment of, oh my gosh, for 25, 30 years, I've been on the radio in the morning talking to people. Now I'm that person. And it was this really, like I tell people, all these experiences, you might ask, was it embarrassing? Did you get noticed? Did people say, didn't you used to be a big guy on the radio? None of it was humiliating. It was all humbling. It was very humbling to be on the other side of the radio and to be out there doing jobs where you're working hard and you're just trying to make ends meet. And it really reshaped my whole outlook on life and kind of recalibrated my perspective. I couldn't wait to get back somewhere and tell these stories again, and I felt like there was no place till KNIX called. When
KNIX called, because they had some changes in the morning show there, you got partnered up with who I think is one of the most talented guys in the business as well. Ben Campbell is an amazing talent, and he's been on the show before, and the voices he can do and the timing of the jokes, and then Brooke on there adds such an element to it. What is the Tim, Ben, and Brooke show like, and how is it different for you now because of where you've come from?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I mean, again, I have a different perspective about life and an outlook on life. My kids, I was so happy. My kids were all, out of the house, and they're all on their own. 5 kids, all a year apart, and so they're doing well. Now it's just me and my wife, and so I come from a different perspective. Like a lot of shows, they try to pair people that are all the same. This show is different. It's me. I call myself a perennial. Brooke, who's the other end, she's a millennial. And then you've got Ben, who is talented and crazy and one of the most interesting people ever. He's the most humble guy, but he has the most credibility in terms of an entertainer. Like, he'll just sort of throw off, I was on the Jimmy Kimmel show again last night, no big deal. Like, what? I'm telling, that'd be the first thing I tell people. But anyway, he's funny. He's very talented the same way that Willie was talented musically and comedy. Sometimes I look at him and I go, this is the greatest job ever. So it is great to be back on the radio every morning on KNIX.
It's so cool to have you in the building and to be friends with you now, because there was that time when you were a legitimate star in the eyes of so many people, and for you to tell that story of losing it all is a motivation for me, and I appreciate you telling it, because you could still go on and talk about, of course I'm back, and it's really cool of you to tell everybody what it's like, as almost a warning to people to appreciate every single day.
Amen.
So I appreciate you coming on the show. It's fun to work with you. Mornings on KNIX 102.5 from, is it 5
it's
to
5
10?
to 10 a.m. Monday through Saturday.
Monday through, oh, that's right, because the Saturday I listen on Saturdays because we're on at the same time.
Exactly.
Don't listen to me, but if you're wanting the music, thank you so much for coming on.
It's always great to be with you.
Tim Hattrick, we'll be back. Welcome back. It's time for one of my favorite parts of the show. We call it From Arizona for America. It's our way to congratulate and thank the fine Arizona men and women who have recently graduated from boot camp and are now serving in our country's military. So please join me in honoring Airman First Class Nicholas Summers from Casa Grande High School, Airman Sean Deirdre from Mountain Ridge High School in Glendale, and Airman First Class Danica Malosi from Desert Vista High School in Phoenix. For a list of more of our friends and neighbors that are from Arizona for America, you can go to the Mike Broomhead page at aztv.com. We'll be back in a minute with Broomhead's Best and hashtag this. Don't go away. Time for a very heartwarming edition of Broomhead's Best. The Glendale Police Department really stepped up. In this era of anti-cop sentiments, listen to this story. There's an elderly lady. She fled Belgium during World War II. She has lived in the same mobile home since 1967. Officers saw the condition of her home and stepped up to the plate. Officers cleaned up the trailer and all the clutter inside and outside of it, trying to provide a clean, safe environment for this lady. Cops going the extra mile. That's really the kind of people they really are. It was great to see. This week, Glendale PD, your Broomhead's Best. And now it's what we call hashtag this. All right, hashtag Goodwin Fire near Prescott. As we tape today, over 25,000 acres have burned, and there is only a 1% containment. There's a big conversation about how we thin our forest properly so we can get to these fires. They have to fight it from the air or do backburns. They can't get to where the fire is. It's time to stop the madness and get some real rules in place where we can thin the forest and get rid of the underbrush so these fires don't destroy the forests in Arizona. That's the right thing to do. We'll be back in a minute to close out the show. Don't go away. Before we close out the show, in Phoenix this past week, the city council voted to give a family $1.5 million in a settlement. This is a family of a guy who was killed by Phoenix police. The cop was cleared of any wrongdoing in a criminal investigation and an internal policy investigation. He was completely exonerated and found to be innocent. And instead of standing up for their officer, they caved into public pressure from different groups, and now we're giving this guy's family $1.5 million. Tragic loss that this man lost his life, but this guy didn't do the right thing when he was told, and it cost him his life. And now they're making a cop look bad in Phoenix. I think it's a horrible thing to do. On next week's show, we've got Detective Tanya Corder from the Scottsdale Police Department. She does work with the Internet Crimes Bureau, Crimes Against Children Bureau, and she has got a story to tell. If you are a parent or a grandparent, you're going to want to be here for that because it is a compelling story. Have a happy and safe 4th of July. Make sure you are safe. If you're anywhere with fireworks, don't start fires. Make it easy for people. Have a great 4th of July. Happy Independence Day to America. God bless everyone.
Get more of Mike Broomhead on Facebook, Twitter, and of course weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 550 KFYI.